welcome to the Loaded Goat. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Chris 1.
And today we have Chris 2, Chris Hollinghead, joining us again.
No, that feels too much like a ranking. I want to be like Chris B, and he can be Chris A.
No, then it's like a ranking too. Let's just both.
I want a ranking.
Okay.
You want a ranking?
Yes.
Okay.
How about the Chris, like the Ohio State University? You are the Chris.
Oh, we can do that. Okay.
Okay.
The Chris. Okay, all right. I will call you. All right. So the Chris and Chris are here today, and we're doing Andy and Helen have their day, which Christopher, that's how I always distinguish the two of you. I know you must have loved this episode since you love when they do the same plot over and over.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. I was just enthralled by this episode.
Yeah. What do you think of this episode, Chris?
Well, first of all, before I say that, I just want to pause here and just revere you two. The last time I was on, you were fledgling stars. You were coming up the ranks. Now you're superstars, and it's just been an amazing journey to watch. I'm proud of you both.
We're superstars?
Yeah, I agree. The fame has been hard. You know, you're not supposed to get into this business for fame and fortune, but it's nice when you get it, you know? And so we're just rich and famous now, and it's awesome.
We are.
I agree. Now to the episode, it's interesting. It is sort of regurgitated some of the plot lines. It kind of gets on my nerves because it just makes your patience grow so thin when I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but when he continues to bother Andy and Helen. So I don't know. It's not my fave for sure.
You feel, I mean, Chris, you and I have watched this show since we were little kids.
That's right.
And I'm not. Yes, thank you for verifying, Christopher. But we watched this show since we were little kids, and the antics of Barney are still funny. But as an adult, do you think you look at them after having watched this show multiple times or seen at each episode multiple times? Do you think you look at some of his antics through a different perspective sometime, and you're like, gosh, Barney, this is just making me cringe?
It's sort of sad that you grow up, you know. I don't remember analyzing it nearly as much when I was 8, 10. So it was just fun. But yeah, when you watch, I guess it's with anything, you've watched it so many times, you start nitpicking.
Especially if you start a podcast to beat it to death, you know? It's like, of course we're going to find some of these. Is that what we do, Aaron? Is that our goal?
To beat it to death?
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to beat it to death. I think it's just something where, fans of the show can listen in to two people talking about it, and you're getting your perspective for the first time. I mean, you're the straw that stirs the drink on this show.
Good.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, on a kind of serious note, this is five seasons in.
Yeah.
You look at any television show that made it this long, you see in all of them, you see a little bit of a recycled thing, some bits and things like that. I will say it's kind of a testament to the amazing actors and that they could pull it off over and over again. Mm-hmm. I mean, even though I see it and I'm like, oh, we've kind of been down this road before with Barney. He just doesn't really learn, and it's still entertaining. It still has its really high points. So even though this episode's not one of my favorites, it's still got some really good stuff.
I agree.
Totally. And I would actually venture to say that we're in our 5th season 2 of The Loaded Goat. And if you listen to a lot of it, all my stuff is unique completely. But Aaron does recycle a lot of this canned mumbo.
Yeah, Christopher, I can tell, you're just on another level. Aaron is a little stale at times, but you, Christopher, are pulling the kid along. So
thank you. It's all the prep I do.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I feel like he's carrying me. That's how I've always felt. One thing I was also going to say is, now you look at your typical sitcoms, or just even your typical now. I mean, a sitcom can get away with doing 12 episodes a season. I mean, when you're banging out 32 episodes, I mean, it's not like you might have some retreads. Yeah.
For sure.
All right, so we want to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. We open as Andy is cleaning up the jail in the morning, and Barney comes in tired. He was out late, a bit late the night before. He had a date, and he didn't get to bed until 10:45.
Woo! He's a bad boy, though.
Yeah. And first they went to Morelli's and then went over to the house to watch TV. Turns out, or you say watch TV with quotation marks. Turns out it wasn't with Thelma Lou. It was with Juanita. I think of all the stuff that Barney does in this episode that annoys me. This is number one. I don't like him going out on Thelma Lou with Juanita.
Yeah. They build this whole character around like her being like this beautiful, smart, like self-sustaining, and then Barney just turns on her. We're supposed to think it's funny over and over again.
Already off the bat, Barney is. I don't know what Barney's
You are
up to.
Against polyamorous relationships. Is that what you're coming out here saying, Aaron?
I'm not against them. I'm against them if you're actually. Let me just say, I'm not. If you're gonna, you just really caught me off guard. I'm going to say I feel like he's basically cheating on Thelma Lou. Is what I'm saying.
And you're not okay with that.
I'm not okay with that. Cool. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to see how you viewed the institution of marriage. Just checking here.
I view any relationship where two people say we're exclusive as you should be exclusive. That's, call me old fashioned.
I agree.
You know who would agree with you, Aaron?
Who?
Thelma Lou's father.
Sure would.
That's
true. Sure would.
Very astute.
Let me pull you out of the fire there for a minute, Aaron, and with this comment. What time did you say this was? He didn't get in bed to win?
10:45.
10:40. So this would not even qualify for the smut column on the back page for Mayberry After Midnight.
No.
I mean,
actually, I'm going to bet in Mayberry if you stay at another woman's house after 10 o'clock, after sundown, people probably are writing about it at Mayberry After Midnight.
It's midnight somewhere.
Yes,
it's always midnight somewhere.
And so Andy and Helen apparently have a date that night, but they're going to go to the movies, and Barney just now all of a sudden says you're in a rut. And then Helen comes in and says she can't go to the movies because she has a bunch of history papers to grade. Barney offers to grade the papers because history is his subject. And,
of course.
Yeah. And Andy says he and Helen aren't spending as much time together because they're so busy with work. And then, of course, Barney makes the observation that everything they do is all about work. And it turns out they're busy all week. And Andy asks about Friday, and Helen says she has a PTA meeting. And I don't know, Chris, is it, as a teacher, I think it's kind of sadistic to schedule a PTA meeting on a Friday night.
Never.
Yeah.
Tell the high school football coach, I'm sorry, coach, you're going to have to go to the PTA meeting first.
And Andy says they need to block off a day at some point, and Barney offers to watch the town for the day and take care of all of Andy's family stuff. And Helen says she has a bunch of stuff to do. I think they actually sound, I mean, like this stuff, you're like, you could squeeze a movie together. I mean, they sound like a couple of, like, you know, when people retire and they're like, oh, I got a really busy week this week. I got to go to the store on Tuesday, and I've got a church board meeting on Thursday. I don't know, I'm going to get it all done. I mean, and that's about what they sound like.
I got to rake the leaves, Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
It is just so funny when you hear people, you're like, that doesn't sound like all that much.
We're going to think about the fact that we just saw Barney being, as you said, Aaron, unfaithful.
Yeah.
And now he is going overboard to show how faithful of a friend he is. It's kind of creepy how persistent he is. Like, yeah. I mean, if I'm trying to do something for you and you're like, no, we can't, sorry, that's nice of you, I might try a second, one more try. And then that gets shot down. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the hint that, maybe another time. Let's just move on. No, not Barney. He shoots down every one of their excuses.
Well, I think he feels guilty, and that's why he's trying to project a little bit of penance. Is that the right word?
There you
go.
go.
I don't know, but that's what he's trying to do here.
When he really needs to be projecting, I'll tell you who he needs to be making a day, who he needs to be waiting on hand and foot is Thelma Lou.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, I got to be honest with you.
No, I'm with you. You're right.
You have a daughter. If your boyfriend was cheating on her and going out with Juanita, you wouldn't be happy with this.
He may need a day at the lake.
Yeah, exactly. So they agree to go to Myers Lake for the day and are very excited. And Andy is touched, and Barney says he can return the favor by making him the best man, which is, let's jump the gun here.
Who was your best man? And if it wasn't Chris Hollinghead, why wasn't? Was there any drama, Aaron, in your...
Oh, there's a wonderful question.
I just thought I'd stir that up a little bit.
Whoa, before you answer that, Christopher, ask Aaron who my best man was.
Who was Chris's best man, Aaron?
I was.
And then who was your best man, Aaron?
Well, the difference here is Chris is an only child, and I've got a brother, so my brother was my best man.
Oh, so you let your parents pick it. Got it. Okay. Cool.
That's what it boiled
I love
down
you,
to.
Andrew. I love you, Andrew.
Can I brag about how I did my best man structure?
How did you do your best man structure?
I crushed it. So we did a small wedding party. I had one guy that I had a best man, and then another guy that was like, those were the two that would have been upset. It's like the Andrew and Chris Hollinghead, thing. I made one of those guys the officiant, and then my sister, I made best sister. Then I let them decide where they stand. And so I got away with everybody got to be the best. The guy that was officiating felt like he was center of attention. The best man got to be the best man. Pulled one over, and everyone was happy.
Yeah, it was one of those weddings where, one of those California-like weddings, you just, where everything was just kind of wild.
I did kidding. Swear in my vows.
I think you did, yes. But no, I'm
kidding. He had one of those Oprah weddings. Everybody gets the title. Everybody
gets the title. Exactly.
It was a good wedding. I feel like the officiant was more emotional that day than anybody else was.
Yeah, that also had something to do with the 8 bottles of tequila he drank.
Well, that'll do it too. So basically, that Saturday, Goober is going to take Andy and Helen to Myers Lake, and Barney is not impressed with the truck because he says they need to be going in style. I think going in style and Goober pile driving do not go hand in hand, but Barney just tells Goober not to speak because Andy and Helen need to have conversation time and to get rid of the gassy smell. He's really certain Andy and Helen are going to get engaged. And at the Taylor household, Andy and Helen are packing up lunch, and Barney calls, and he's being passive aggressive about all the errands he's been given. It's just, you're just like, Barney should have, I think they're already starting to regret letting Barney handle things.
Classic. Tale as old as time.
Yeah. So Goober comes in and he asks for a chicken drumstick, and then he says he loves the movie Picnic with Cary Grant. As Andy and Helen point out, it's not Cary Grant who was in Picnic, it was William Holden. But that doesn't stop Goober from doing his impression of Cary Grant.
I got all confused here because I think Cary Grant is from Helena, Montana.
Is he?
I think so. He and Myrna Loy were both kind of contemporaries coming out of Helena together. And then no one else was famous until I came onto the picture in this podcast.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, it's funny stuff, but we're going to see Goober do his impression of Cary Grant a few more times throughout the episode, or throughout the series. And at Myers Lake, they're setting up, and then Goober invites himself to have a sandwich, and Barney then shows up and says Helen didn't give him the key to let the repairman in, and Helen says it's under the mat, and then Barney shoos Goober away, and Barney finally leaves as we go to commercial. This episode was produced by Pod Machine. They do a great podcast at a great rate. I was fortunate to get started on this a few years ago, and I've just been very, very pleased with it ever since. I mean, they will edit your podcast. They will do artwork for your podcast. They'll do the YouTube videos for the podcast, and they have a very quick turnaround time once you upload all your material. So I highly recommend it.
I'm pro pod in general. I love bean pods. I like pod hotels. I like pod apples, maybe. But you know what pods I like best? Pod machines.
Pod machines. Me too.
I like them better than podcasts. I honestly don't even really like podcasts that much. So I'm just thankful that you're here.
Why do you do this podcast?
To see your dimples, baby.
To see my dimples. Well, and if you really push hard, Pod Machine might be able to give you some dimples. I don't know. So go to podmachine.com to learn more and enter Loaded Goat at checkout for a 10% discount.
And that's spelled just like Loaded Goat.
And after the break, Andy and Helen have finished lunch and are cuddling on a blanket. And they go to kiss, and Barney shows up with Opie, who wanted to see a couple of horror movies, House of Blood and The Beast That Ate Minnesota. I mean, I guess either it ate the land in Minnesota or it just ate the whole population of Minnesota.
What if it were like it came in through the lakes, the Great Lakes, and just starts chomping away at Duluth and works its way on down and then gets full by the time it gets to Iowa, which is really too bad because that's when you get to the fertile ground. That's that good land you want to eat.
My guess is the beast went north and he got to Canada and he just bit off more than he could chew.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
That is why this is the golden podcast of all podcasts.
Thanks. So
look out, Joe Rogan.
Yeah, we got your number.
This is the Loaded Goat, emphasis on goat. Yes.
There you go. And Barney wants Andy's okay to take him there. And when you think about the fact that in the 50s and 60s, people were scared were stressed out about taking their kids to see horror movies. And you think about what horror movies are today, and you're kind of like, these are so mild in comparison. And Andy says it's fine. He's irritated. Barney leaves, and they take the boat out on the lake to get some peace and quiet. And Andy goes to kiss Helen, and then in the distance, she sees Barney calling for them. And I think of all the shots that I remember of watching this episode, that's the one I always remember the most. Is her looking off into the distance and Barney just waving his arms trying to get their attention, because it is just so funny. Like, he can't even go out on the lake and get peace and quiet.
Did you notice too? I don't mean to go backwards, but how they jumped when Barney said that he had Opie there. Yeah. I mean, I know he was about to kiss. They were sitting, but you would have thought they were like full on make out session.
Yeah.
Totally.
Anyway,
Totally.
It was funny. Has Opie never seen them hold hands or a smooch? I guess not.
I mean, I think about like season 4. I know there was not a ton of continuity, but even when they think Andy and Helen are going to get married, they send Opie over to a friend's house because he doesn't even know they're dating. And until he bought her some knickers back in the earlier in the season, or whatever you wanted, where he bought her some nylons, and Andy had to explain, wait a minute, Opie, this is my girlfriend. I mean, that was kind of the first he heard about it. So I guess Opie hasn't seen any PDA, but I don't know.
I'm sorry. Back to your
no.
Well, this could transition to the next episode, right? Of like, no, I'm not going to go there. I'll save that joke for later.
Yeah,
but get excited, everybody.
So Barney shows up with George, Nevis TV repairman, who was played by Howard Morris, who directed this episode. And obviously, Howard Morris plays Ernest T. Bass, and it's very clear that it's him.
Even I spotted that.
Okay, well, if even you spotted that, then we know it's. No.
I've got a question for you. Can you think of, off the top of your head, any other time in cinematic anything history where there is an actor who played a role that was so iconic to then follow it up with a role that was so forgettable?
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
This George character, he's just annoying.
I don't know. I mean, I always just wonder, like with Howard Morris, he's directing the episode, the dialogue is pretty straightforward. I just wonder if Howard Morris is like, all right, I'll do this, and I'll just basically talk like this and wear spectacles, and that's how I'm going to do it.
The only other person I can really think about that's done that would be Adam Sandler. It's really, really iconic in Happy Gilmore, and then you get into like Righteous Gemstones, and that character just goes away.
He's not on Righteous Gemstones.
Oh, what's that other show then? What's the one?
See how forgettable his role was? Aaron doesn't even remember him.
Uncut Gems. That's what it is.
Are you kidding
me?
They
could not be more different.
They could not be more different. They're both very memorable, though.
I digress.
Yeah. George says that the TV has to be taken to the shop, and once Helen's okay, Andy says it's fine, and he runs them off. I mean, he is so frustrated. And later they have caught some fish and are approached by a game warden who asks for his license. Andy accidentally left his wallet at home, and the guy takes them to the justice of the peace. This is not a fun game warden. He's kind of sarcastic. He's also played by Colin Mayle, who was the announcer for the show.
Are y'all fisher folk? Do you fish?
I'm not. You fish, don't you? Yeah.
Have you ever been like asked for your license when you're out on the streams or ponds?
Maybe once in 30 years of fishing. No, not much.
Yeah, so I'm not a fisherman, but I like have this extreme, like if someone's there and they're like, do you want to cast? It's like, I can't because I don't have a license and this person's going to come out of the wilderness. And, the odds are so low, but I live in such fear of this that I've never cast without a license, which is the point. But Big Brother always looking down.
Yeah, you never know.
And at the justice of the peace, Andy calls Goober and tells him what happened and that Barney needs to bring him $25. And Goober relays this message. They're at the Justice of the Peace in Siler City, and Andy had mentioned something about a license, and he needs $25. And Barney jumps to the wrong conclusion. We cut to Barney in salt and pepper, Aunt B crying, and Goober and Opie dressed up, and they're heading over to Siler City to celebrate the wedding. And they rush into the Justice of the Peace office, and Andy is so irritated at Barney, and Goober is throwing rice as we go to commercial. I mean, I actually kind of felt like I liked that they just basically said, we're going to end this on chaos. And Andy being mad. Agree. I loved it. I was just like, they didn't even waste their time. It was just like, let's just show how ridiculous this is and end it.
I'm sorry. I've got a question. You mentioned that Colin Mayle, the actor who is the justice or the game warden, and he is the voice on the opening credits. My question is, did he have a lot of roles in other shows? Do you know anything about his acting history?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, he is a good-looking guy. I don't know if he's that great an actor, but he's got a very memorable voice. So I always just assumed that most of his career was announcing.
Probably so. Would you have known? Because I wouldn't. Now, when I listen to him, knowing that he was the opening credit voice, I can hear it in there. But if I did not know, like if I hadn't read that fact, and I don't think I would have known. Would you have known?
No. I mean, because I feel like his voice is actually even like, because when he says the Andy Griffith Show, I mean, I feel like it's almost like he's purposely going out of his way to have more of a subdued voice when he's acting.
Yeah, I agree. It is not his natural voice.
Here's a question. Do you think that he records that every single episode like we do with our sponsorships?
No.
Okay.
Hopefully he got a heck of a deal that his name
Pod Machine.
That his name got mentioned every time, but I don't know. So in the epilogue, Andy and Helen are snuggling, and basically Andy has sent Barney and Thelma Lou on a picnic so he could get some peace and quiet. And just then Barney runs in asking for a fishing pole as we close. And he's like, "What are y'all doing?" You're just like, "What we've been trying to do the whole episode is make out." And it just doesn't. Barney keeps messing it up.
This is Barney untethered is what I would rename this episode.
You want to go first, Christopher?
The Chris? Yes. He is happy to go. I think I'm doing like just a solid 6. Not original, fun to watch, but didn't blow my mind.
I'll go with 6.
I think I'm gonna be the Scrooge of this group, and I'm gonna go 5.
Oh wow, okay.
I don't know. It gets so predictable, even though I have seen it 100 times. Of course, it's predictable. They all are, I guess, now. But I mean, even when you watch this the first time, after Barney bothers them one time, you think, okay, I see where this is going. It just gets tiresome for me. Here's the deal. It's like your worst flavor of ice cream. It's not what you would pick, but it's still ice cream.
That's true. Yeah. What is everyone's least favorite common flavor of ice cream?
Coffee.
That's a common one?
Okay, we're talking about.
I think that's okay.
If it's like common, I wouldn't go over to somebody's house who's serving ice cream and you'd be like, "You have any coffee ice cream?" That's odd. Then you start going into other ones. I mean, so yeah. But what about y'all?
I don't like mint.
I was about to say the exact same thing. Honestly,
good
mint.
for you.
I don't have a problem with coffee. flavor myself.
I tell you what, next time,
this bougie guy from the big city over here going in is like, do you have any Java?
next
It's
time,
like, no, I'm sorry, we're working people, Aaron.
next time I am home, I am going to every grocery store, and I'm looking in the freezer section, and if I find coffee, I'm making a point to tell you.
Well, I hope you buy it and bring it over. I love coffee ice cream.
Good. Well, I'm glad we had this conversation. Does anybody have any final thoughts?
No. Just let's put this one down.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Next week, Chris Hollinghead will join us again for 3 Wishes for Opie. I'm really excited about doing that. And
spoiler alert, he's the first wish for Opie to come on this show.
That was Opie's first wish. Yeah.
That was Ron wrote in and I was like, you know what I really want? So here we are.
Back by popular demand. Thanks, Opie.
And until then, everyone, let's go see the beast that ate Minnesota.